So last year I covered the younger brother of the stop-motion SpongeBob special, Legends of Bikini Bottom. This year I'm covering Plankton's Paranoia, even though it's not necessarily a Halloween-influenced episode.
Now we all know what this day is.
Today is the day when Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula set!
Like he does every day.
So this already brings back memories of episodes like Squilliam Returns, Clams, and New Leaf, but we'll get into those later too in a second. The crux of this episode is built off of this anniversary that these two share. The anniversary being supposedly of Plankton, which that episode aired in July and this one airs in September, so unfortunately not too meta. Krabs suspects that Plankton will go all out on the anniversary because it's the anniversary. SpongeBob's on guard duty and Squidward's undercover, which is a fantastic side joke that Krabs' reaction sells well. As SpongeBob walks, his walk cycle of himself hitting himself over the head with the mop really brings out this do first think later attitude, which puts him into this predicament. Now I've gone on and on about the animation style and how it's expressive both in Chef Bob and My Leg at least. However, here I don't think it really works out with the story they want to tell. The story they tell here feels like it belonged in the post-movie era, seasons 4 through 9. Basically have Plankton steal the formula and switch who's paranoid, and this is essentially one course meal. I also want to say these trenches don't really work with how SpongeBob is walking. It kind of looks like they animated it before adding in the trenches, which would make sense with how the perspective of these trenches are. The left side aligns pretty great, but the right side looks incredibly sloppy. Also, to add on top, SpongeBob's feet doesn't look like it's reacting to what is essentially a hole in the ground, or hitting Squidward with the mop, and now we have Krabs assuring himself that Plankton must be trying to steal the formula, and I have to say, one-eyed Krabs, much scarier than anything I've seen in SpongeBob yet. Yes, including that high-resolution scene you see in episodes like Whatever Happened to SpongeBob. Put that underground in the sewers in a horror game, and that's the precise point I delete the entire contents of my System 32 folder.
These customers are blocking the way.
Despite the fact that this would never align with Krabs' personality, I love this joke. The animation worked perfectly for this because it was physical pain. With slapstick, it isn't generally too bad to have the animation be a lot more bouncy, expressive, and cartoony. It's just that the characters don't have to eat, sleep, and breathe with this ultra wacky demeanor. I know it's their new direction, but it doesn't look good when you put it on everything. Contrast generally makes things funnier. Also, why is that garbage man so happy? It's almost as if he's taking pleasure from having people dumped into his truck. You're a weird dude. Don't hang around my kids. So Krabs cooks up a plan to point an arrow at the formula. You know, because Plankton maybe can't find it. So Krabs sees his formula gone and goes red alert. Batten down the hatches, furl the deck, break out the happy snacks. Because Patrick wanted ketchup. I know I'm making jokes, and it seems like this may be a good review, but this is not gonna be positive. At least for the most part. Unlike the last episode I reviewed, My Leg, where it was all about the creative ways for Fred or others to break their body parts, or the other episode, Chef Bob, that was filled with interesting insults and roasts, this episode just shows how lame Mr. Krabs is for putting everyone around him through the ringer to make himself feel better. Sure, if this episode started out with Plankton vowing to do something, then the episode would make sense because Krabs was given a warning. Here, he just assumes that something is happening and is clawing for Plankton to fail. Honestly, that's not really funny to me. But I love the subtle smile you made with the patterned brick wall. Let's take a look at New Leaf, for example. It actually compares quite nicely to this episode. In that episode, Krabs saw Plankton was allegedly quitting, and that led into him not believing Plankton. But that in and of itself was a plan to get Krabs' guard down to give him the formula. Now the biggest difference again between that episode and this one is that there is no Plankton acknowledgement, which I feel is the fatal flaw of this episode. Imagine for a second if Burger King wanted to combat Wendy's. Hey guys, instead of choosing never frozen beef, let's just serve you guys frozen burgers. Let's just never cook them. No guys, some parts of your stories you just can't take out.
The next morning.
I'm still here. Waiting for that blasted Plankton.
I don't understand this scene at all. Is it that he got up too fast? Is it that they wanted him to exit in a cartoony way? Is it insert some third reason? This is the issue when everything you do is cartoony. When everything is wacky, nothing is wacky, because how can I compare? Now obviously, I'm exaggerating my statement here, but my point is, when a lot of actions and movements seem very loose and bouncy, you can run into this gray area of necessary movement or comical secondary actions. Also, because of the time was yesterday Plankton's first attempt to steal, or was it today? Because if it was yesterday, why is he paranoid today? But if it were today, why did he worry so much yesterday? Wait a minute, anniversaries are generally one day, right? And there was a night scene where Krabs was sleeping, and he was saying that on the anniversary, Plankton would be at his most desperate to steal the formula. Wow, that's a giant plot hole. Like, wow, guys, this is pretty bad.
Yeah, I'll take the patty formula.
Mr. Krabs, it's not Plankton!
From now on, I'm using the drive-thru.
But the jokes are just as funny as any other episode. So Krabs interrogates an upside down puff, which leads into Krabs going even more insane, not only requiring that people eat every Krabby Patty on the premises, a la a For Here or To Go, a very underlooked episode of SpongeBob. He also bans pockets, but he didn't ban the supposed drive-thru. He also channels his inner gazpacho and bans people from his food establishment, albeit in Chowder was much funnier. Now let's talk about Clams, which has a great title card, by the way. Clams had Mr. Krabs go slowly insane because of the loss of his millionth dollar. Within that episode, he had his moment with the dollar to solidify the bond, the mourn of it to give sympathy, and a reason to be insane due to thinking about it all the time. All alone in the boat with SpongeBob and Squidward playing the straight man. This episode does pretty much that last bit, thinking about it all the time, getting insane, SpongeBob and Squidward being straight men. But whereas in Clams, I wanted Krabs to find his dollar. Here I wanted this old man to go back in his office and calm down. Also ask yourself, why do you want to see Plankton fail to capture the formula for the 800th time again?
Where you hiding? I'm right here.
At the chub bucket. Come on down and try our new chub nuggets.
I mean, at this point, you can carry the entire chum bucket. Proportions? Those don't matter because you only see this for a few seconds. I mean, if it was because the camera was low enough to see him, you'd think the sidewalk would also be wider. But it looks like they just put a transparent Plankton over an already made chum bucket photo. So now Krabs starts to hallucinate, and I do love these scenes. They even do the dolly zoom effect, which is much easier to do in animation, albeit maybe 3D animation more than 2D. We then get to this twist. Yes, SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Mrs. Puff, Squidward, Pearl, and yes, Old Man Jenkins are all entering the chum bucket. Now, initially, I thought this was part of Krabs' hallucination. I mean, they played around with Krabs hallucinating stuff before with a penny, and the subtle hint is that all of them are not looking at the Krusty Krab because that's dumb. But no, actually, according to the animation, they are all dumb. What are they looking at? That's not the Krusty Krab, that's directly across from the chum bucket.
Mr. Krabs, you have got to come with me to the chum bucket, for Plankton has kidnapped Squidward.
That was such a fantastic wooden acting performance that I might have to nail it on the board along with the rest of this barricade. But Krabs plays along and goes there, but not before making Krabby Patties that inflict pain when eaten. Now, this is actually a very creative concept, and it's such a shame that it was wasted on such a pathetic episode. I would love to see this. And considering that SpongeBob is bringing back the old concepts, just make this Pretty Patties 2.0. Obviously, Krabs is in on the scam, but he isn't in on a true surprise.
Surprise!
Oh, come, Krabs. It's the anniversary of the first time I tried to steal your Krabby Patty formula.
Okay, so if the anniversary is today, then what is this scene here?
Now we all know what this day is.
Today is the day when Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula set.
So why was Krabs paranoid the day before? Someone needs to get hurt here.
No, don't eat the patties!
All jokes aside, the episode ends with Krabs truly baiting Plankton into getting the formula, thus being his self-fulfilling prophecy to validate his paranoia, and that was all Plankton Paranoia. I felt like this episode missed the mark of being a truly neat episode to test the hallucination and insanity of a character who is built for it, along with this new animation style. It takes out a truly important part, the reason why Krabs cares, and leaves in a plot hole of separate days and anniversary. I don't even even want to get back into it. The episode was unclear and sometimes mean to be mean, which would have been fine if the jokes were funny and justified. And while some jokes did hit the mark because of their expressive and wacky animation, not all jokes do. Nor does that excuse the abundance of over-expressive animation in all facets of their actions. Underwhelming episode from such a great season anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Special thanks to the patrons of October, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.